Chuck Norris is the embodiment of strength and invincibility to the world. A 6-time world karate champion, a star of more than 30 action films, and the subject of countless internet memes, he has become synonymous with power. But beneath the tough persona that we all recognize, there's a hidden story of resilience, struggle, and transformation. While memes like Chuck Norris doesn't do push-ups, he pushes the earth down, celebrate his invincibility, the real Chuck Norris has faced personal battles that no black belt or strength could ever protect him from. His story is far more than just a symbol of power. It's a journey of overcoming deep wounds, confronting internal fears, and transforming pain into strength. What does it take to become a legend? The answer lies not in championships or fame, but in enduring the battles of the heart. A violent beginning in Oklahoma. Chuck Norris was born Carlos Ray Norris on March 10, 1940, in Ryan, Oklahoma. His early life was marked by poverty and violence. His father, Ray Norris, was a mechanic and a World War II veteran, but his home was a battlefield. Ray's alcoholism and unpredictable rages turned the household into a place of terror. Chuck and his 2 younger brothers lived in constant fear as their father's fists became the loudest expression of his love. Chuck later confessed, "My father never hugged me. He only hit me." This lack of affection, combined with the daily torment, created scars far deeper than any physical blows. Chuck learned early that survival meant staying invisible, enduring the storms in silence, and hoping they would pass without landing on him. The invisible boy in school was no refuge for young Chuck Norris. He was shy, small for his age, and plagued with anxiety. The bruises he tried to hide only made him more invisible. At a time when every child longs for acceptance, Chuck was overlooked, dismissed by classmates and teachers alike. He wasn't bullied, he simply didn't matter. This sense of invisibility carried over into adulthood, where he struggled with self-worth and believing he had any value beyond his father's rejection. Despite his suffering, Chuck endured silently. He watched his mother, Wilma, work tirelessly to provide for the family, but she, too, was powerless against the violence in the home. Chuck's childhood was one of hardship, loneliness, and deep self-doubt, which would shape the man he became. Escaping to the military, a search for identity. At the age of 18, Chuck Norris made a decision that would change his life. He joined the United States Air Force, not out of a desire to serve his country, but as a desperate attempt to escape the toxic environment of his childhood home. Chuck later admitted that his motivation was not glory, but the need to escape his father. However, the military offered no easy answers. Stationed in South Korea, Chuck found himself isolated, still plagued by feelings of inadequacy. The Air Force didn't provide the identity or the confidence he had hoped for. In fact, it only deepened his insecurities. He felt like the same invisible boy, this time surrounded by strangers who could not see his pain or his potential. Discovering martial arts, a path to strength. In the midst of his loneliness in South Korea, Chuck stumbled upon a Korean martial arts school. This was a turning point in his life. For the first time, Chuck witnessed strength not born out of anger, but from discipline and focus. He had always been told he was weak, but now he saw a different way to define strength. After much hesitation, Chuck entered the dojo, where he was welcomed by an instructor who saw something in him that he couldn't see in himself. The training was grueling, his body was weak, and every move was a struggle. But Chuck found something deeper than physical prowess. Martial arts gave him a way to channel his pain, his anger, and his self-doubt into something positive. It became not just a physical practice, but a philosophy, a way of life. The slow rise, overcoming self-doubt. As Chuck continued his training, he faced many struggles. Progress was painfully slow, and his lack of natural talent made every advancement feel like a hard-won battle. There were nights when he considered quitting, haunted by the voice of his father telling him he wasn't good enough, but his instructor's words kept him going. Talent is nothing, persistence is everything. Chuck learned that strength wasn't about being the best. It was about never giving up, no matter how difficult the journey. By the time Chuck's tour in Korea ended, he wasn't the same boy who had left Oklahoma. He had found a path forward, one built on perseverance, discipline, and the refusal to quit. These lessons would shape not only his martial arts career, but his entire life. The struggle to find purpose in America. When Chuck returned to America in 1962, he brought with him a black belt and a new sense of purpose, but the world wasn't ready for his unique skills. Karate was virtually unknown in the United States, and Chuck struggled to find recognition. He worked odd jobs, including a stint as a file clerk, to make ends meet, but the old feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt crept back in. He would practice his martial arts alone at night, pushing himself to improve, but it often felt like he was stuck in a cycle of failure. There was no validation from the world, and the ghosts of his past continued to haunt him. But despite the lack of recognition, Chuck refused to give up. His determination to keep training was his only way to silence the old voice that told him he was worthless. Opening his first karate school. In 1964, Chuck took a leap of faith and opened his first karate school in Torrance, California. The dojo was small and unremarkable, and for weeks no one showed up. But Chuck kept at it. He trained tirelessly, teaching with the same intensity that had been instilled in him in Korea. Slowly, students began to trickle in, and word of his expertise spread. Chuck's approach was different. He didn't rely on natural talent or flashy techniques. Instead, he emphasized discipline, persistence, and respect. Over time, his school grew, and Chuck's reputation as a martial artist began to gain traction. But even as his success as a teacher grew, Chuck still grappled with the feeling that his past was holding him back. Despite his achievements, the shadow of his father's rejection remained, dominating the karate world. By the late 1960s, Chuck Norris had become a dominant force in competitive karate. He won the All-American Karate Championships in 1967, and between 1968 and 1974, he amassed an incredible record, winning 6 world championships and defeating legendary fighters. With 183 wins and only 10 losses, Chuck's reputation as one of the best karate fighters in the world was firmly established. But even at the height of his career, Chuck felt incomplete. His success in the tournament ring didn't translate into the kind of recognition or financial stability he had hoped for. He had achieved greatness in the martial arts world, but the world outside still saw him as invisible, and the ghost of his father's criticism lingered. Breaking into Hollywood. The Bruce Lee connection. Despite his martial arts success, Chuck Norris struggled to break into Hollywood. Casting directors didn't see him as a leading man. In 1972, however, everything changed with a call from Bruce Lee, who wanted to train with him. Their first sparring session was more of a philosophical exchange than a fight, with both men learning from each other. Bruce saw something in Chuck that Hollywood had missed, a quiet intensity and an authenticity that would resonate on screen. In 1972, Bruce Lee cast Chuck in Way of the Dragon, where they filmed the legendary fight scene in Rome's Colosseum. This film made Chuck Norris a star, introducing him to the world as a martial arts icon. The tragic loss of Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee's sudden death in 1973 was a devastating blow to Chuck. The loss of his friend, mentor, and brother-in-arms left a hole that nothing could fill. Chuck struggled with survivor's guilt, wondering why Bruce had been taken so young. His grief affected his career, and for a time, Chuck couldn't find the motivation to continue. However, he eventually honored Bruce's memory by refusing to quit. Chuck continued to take roles and build his career, driven by the lessons he had learned from his late friend. Bruce had believed in him when no one else did, and Chuck vowed to live up to that belief by continuing to work, no matter the challenges. The warrior who never quit. Chuck Norris's story is not just about martial arts or Hollywood fame. It's about resilience. From a childhood filled with violence and rejection to a career marked by both triumphs and personal loss, Chuck has proven time and again that strength comes from within. His journey shows that true power is not about physical prowess, but about the ability to keep moving forward, even when the world doesn't seem to notice. Chuck Norris may have become a legend through his martial arts achievements and his Hollywood roles, but his true strength lies in his ability to overcome the darkness of his past and continue fighting for his place in the world.